We have a major Eagles playoff path update with the Birds win over the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday and the Lions loss against the Buffalo Bills. The number one seed is a real possibility. And there are a couple of pathways for the Eagles to achieve having home field advantage go through Lincoln Financial Field in South Philadelphia. You're watching Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr. And as always, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. And thank you for your continued support. Let's get to 95,000 subscribers with this video. We're 320 people away from that number. Once we get to 100K, YouTube is sending us that silver plaque. We're going to have a party right here on Eagles Now to celebrate that achievement, and you're a winner at the end of the day, because if you're an Eagles fan right here on this show and you subscribe, you get daily and year-round coverage of the Birds. What a run for the Birds right now. The Eagles are in the midst of a franchise record 10-game winning streak. And throughout this winning streak, I've been very impressed for how this Eagles team has played, how they found their identity, how they've won these games, and the way that they've been able to blow out some of these opponents, but also the resume-building wins that they've been able to stack up over time. Remember how uneven the season was to begin the 2024 campaign, especially after that ugly blowout loss on the road to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? And when the schedule came out at first and the Eagles had that Week 5 bye, the sentiment was, that's way too early. 17-game, 18-week schedule, and you're going to have a bye week in Week 5. But at that time, Philadelphia was banged up, and they used that bye week to make adjustments, make changes, come out of that bye week and apply those adjustments, and they have not looked back since. And that is a credit to head coach Nick Sirianni. And so when you take a look at this Eagles winning streak, it all began with that ugly win over the Cleveland Browns. In that game, Philadelphia left a lot of money on the table, but they got the dub. And how about that big Stones play at the end of the game when Jalen Hurts threw that long ball to A.J. Brown to ice the game? That was big-time stuff in that moment. And then the Eagles go on the road the following week to MetLife Stadium. They beat the Giants 28-3. Saquon Barkley dominates in his return to MetLife against his former team. That was the most convincing win the Eagles have had going back to the 2022 season at that point. And then they put together another dominant effort, and they just take down the Cincinnati Bengals in a really impressive fashion in the second half of that game, just taking it to Joe Burrow, and the offense really found its stride. Jalen Hurts was excellent, nearly perfect in that game against Cincinnati. We all know about that game against Jacksonville. Eagles go up 22-0. You think that they're going to cover the spread, and they're going to send Doug Peterson back to Florida with a multi-score win. Jags come back. They're driving to win the ball game. Nakobe Dean picks off Trevor Lawrence to seal that 28-23 victory. Eagles go on the road against a banged-up Cowboys team. No issues there. 34-6. They force 4 or 5 turnovers that day at Jerry World. And then they beat the Washington Commanders 26-18 in primetime. The Commanders came in kind of rolling, feeling themselves a little bit. The upstart Washington club, led by Jaden Daniels, and then the Eagles, they beat them up for 60 minutes. And the Commanders entered as one of the most high-potency offenses in the NFL. Eagles defense had no issues. Saquon Barkley runs for 250 on the road against the Los Angeles Rams in primetime. Eagles overcome an early deficit to beat the Baltimore Ravens, and after Baltimore scored a touchdown and a field goal on their first 2 drives, when the game mattered, Baltimore netted a field goal the rest of the way. 22-16 win against the Panthers. A.J. Brown voicing some concerns about the Eagles' passing game after that Carolina game. And then the Eagles flush all of that, and Jalen Hurts goes 25 of 32, 290 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air, 1 on the ground. A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith, both more than 100 yards. Eagles defense gave up 1 touchdown scoring drive, and the Eagles only allowed Pittsburgh to possess the football for less than 6 minutes and 2 possessions after halftime. They take down another quality playoff team, 27-13. That is 6 wins during this 10-game winning streak for Philadelphia by 8+ points, and 5 wins by double digits. Oftentimes, games in the NFL are decided by 1 score or less. And the Eagles' formula during this winning streak, They've had the number one defense in the NFL, really good at all three levels, dominating the point of attack, good linebacking play. The secondary has been great. How about the job that Vic Fangio has done considering how porous this Eagles defense played last year? Offensively, Philadelphia's had the best run game in the NFL. They dominate games in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter. They're forcing turnovers defensively. And then on offense, not really turning the football over often. And they've been able to win blowouts. They've been able to win close games. They're finding multiple ways to win in a multitude of ways. And they're such a multiple football team. That's a lot of multiples right there, but that's what the Eagles are doing. And I know some detractors will say, but what about the Eagles' resume? They've been beating up on bad opponents during this 10-game winning streak. They've beaten 5 playoff teams so far this year. So they've put together a pretty damn good resume up to this point, and that's a big reason why they're 12-2, the hottest team in the NFL, the most complete and talented team in the NFL. They're set up nicely to win the NFC, make it to the Super Bowl. If they don't, I think that would be a huge disappointment. Talked about that earlier today on our other show. Be sure to check that out. And if they beat the Washington Commanders on Sunday on the road, Eagles are going to win their second division title in 3 years. As for the NFC playoff picture, that's the reason why a lot of you are here. As it stands right now, the Detroit Lions still technically have the number one seed, even though the records are the same. Detroit 12-2, Philadelphia 12-2, and we'll get into that coming up here in a bit. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers really starting to play well of late, escaping those injuries from several weeks ago. They are once again finding their groove, back to the team that they were earlier in the year when they beat Philadelphia, and they beat Detroit, and they beat Washington, and now they're in the 3 spot, 8-6, leading the NFC North. The Los Angeles Rams overtake the Seattle Seahawks to lead the NFC West. Rams are 8-6. Because the NFC North is stacked, the Vikings are the 5 seed at 11-2. The Packers, the 6 seed at 10-4. And then you have the second place team in the NFC East in the Washington Commanders at 9-5. It got hairy. It got dicey against New Orleans, but they were able to keep the Saints out of the end zone on a 2-point conversion to win that game on Sunday, 20-19. Other teams in the mix: Seattle at 8-6. We'll see what happens with Geno Smith. Arizona at 7-7. Atlanta at 6-7. I just don't envision a scenario where San Francisco or Dallas could make the playoffs at 6-8. So coming up next, the meat and potatoes of today's show. What do the Eagles need to do to get home field advantage? It is getting more realistic by the week, and we'll run through all of those scenarios, look at the remaining schedules for the teams that they will be competing against coming up just around the corner. But first, do you enjoy what we do here on Philadelphia Eagles Now? Anytime I'm in front of this camera, on this microphone, I want to give you Eagles shows that are informative, insightful, entertaining, engaging, thought-provoking, where you have a voice. So if you like what we do, type real one. If you want to let us know how we can improve, you can let us know how to do that down in the comment section as well. We'll call it fair that way as well. Today's Philadelphia Eagles Now, sponsored by our friends at Game Time. Holiday season is coming up, and Game Time is focused on togetherness this holiday season. That means you bring people together at live events, and the experience is that much better. And tickets to a sporting event or a live event serves as the perfect gift to put underneath the Christmas tree or by the Hanukkah menorah. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for live events even easier. And what it does, it filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. College football playoff is coming up. You want to make a trip? You want to watch the Penn State Nittany Lions host SMU in the college football playoff coming up this weekend? One of the coolest environments in all of sports worldwide, in my opinion. If you want to go to Eagles Commanders, Birds can clinch the NFC East. Plenty of tickets available because Commies fans know Eagles fans are going to be taking over the joint. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. But what's special about the Game Time app, best seats at the lowest price guaranteed. Prices drop as the event gets closer, and we really appreciate our partner for today's show. for making today's Philadelphia Eagles now possible. Download the app, create an account, use the code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off. Terms apply. First purchase only. What time is it? Game time. All right, the meat and potatoes of today's show. What do the Birds need to do to get home field advantage? This is how Philadelphia can clinch the number 1 seed. There's this scenario where they just take care of business. The Eagles win out at Washington, against Dallas, against the Giants, and then the Lions lose at least one game at Chicago, at San Francisco, and against Minnesota. As we know, that defense is really banged up. David Montgomery out for the year, and so the Lions falling apart at the seams right now. I feel bad for that fan base. This is the best team they've ever had, and they can't stay healthy. Also, for Philadelphia to get the number 1 seed, if they win out, they'll need Minnesota to lose at least one remaining game against Chicago, on the road against Seattle, Green Bay, and at Detroit. The Vikings on the road at home against the Bears tonight on Monday Night Football on this December 16th. You are rooting for Chicago in that game because we as Eagles fans need Minnesota and Detroit to lose at least one more game. And if Philadelphia wins out with a very easy and doable remaining schedule, home field advantage will be coming through South Philadelphia. And then there are a lot of other scenarios here. If the Eagles finish 15-2, they can clinch the number 1 seed if both of these happen. Lions lose once, Vikings lose once, or the Eagles win strength of victory over Minnesota. We don't talk about strength of victory all that often. It comes into play right here, though. Flip the page. If the Eagles finish 14-3, meaning they lose one more game, and they lose to either Washington or Dallas, they can still clinch the number 1 seed if both of these happen. Lions lose twice, Vikings lose twice, or Minnesota loses to Green Bay, or Minnesota loses one time, and Philadelphia gets the strength of victory over Minnesota. And then one more time. If the Eagles finish 14-3 with the loss to the New York Giants, they can clinch the number 1 seed in the NFC if both of these happen. Lions lose twice, Vikings lose twice, or Minnesota loses to Green Bay, and the Eagles win strength of victory over Minnesota. And so a couple of different scenarios there. What's the easiest one? Both if you don't want word salad and for the point of simplifying everything, Eagles win out. They take care of business. They're going to be favorites in every game. They're home in every one of them except being on the road against Washington when they can win the division. And then you're hoping Detroit and Minnesota lose at least one more time. They have difficult schedules remaining. As for the Eagles' schedule, at Commanders, Cowboys, and Giants. Lions' schedule, at Bears, that's next week, week 16, at Niners. So 2 road games in a row. Jared Goff doesn't play the same football outside as he does inside. And then week 18 against Minnesota. That could decide the number 1 seed. It could decide the NFC North. And then the Vikings' remaining schedule at Seattle. Seattle's going to need a win. At home against Green Bay. On the road against the Detroit Lions. You can see a scenario where the Lions lose at least one game and the Vikings lose at least one game. And, of course, Philadelphia winning out. And, again, if that happens, Birds get the number 1 seed. I think the Eagles match up well with Detroit. I was saying this before. Detroit suffered a plethora of injuries on top of already suffering a bevy of injuries. I know that the Lions' offense is really good, but if Jared Goff has to come to Lincoln Financial Field in January, raucous environment, it's a little cold, his stats pale in comparison outside as compared to indoors. I think this Eagles defense has the ingredients to limit that Lions offense. This is an Eagles team with more big game experience as compared to Detroit. I think Dan Campbell's aggressiveness could cost him in a big game, and I just don't see how Detroit could stop this Eagles offense. If they do, that'd be a disaster, and Detroit is banged up. They have 13 players on IR, so the defense is decimated right now. And the Vikings, they have a great defense. Brian Flores is coaching like the best defensive coordinator in football right now. Sam Darnold is having a great year. If you have to go to Minnesota, that place gets loud. It's a hard place to play. Kevin O'Connell is a great offensive mind, so they're an extremely well-coached team. But if the Vikings have to come on the road to Philadelphia, you like how Philadelphia matches up, and the Eagles are better than any team in the NFC. Are the Bucs scary? Do they match up well with Philadelphia? Yes, they're scary and they match up well with Philadelphia. Are the Rams rolling right now? They've won 7 of their last 9. But Saquon Barkley ran for 250 yards against Los Angeles. Are the Green Bay Packers playing great football? Yeah, Philadelphia beat them week 1, and Philadelphia was not playing the ball then that they are right now, although if Jordan Love gets hot, you can certainly what did I say? If Jordan Love is playing hot, look out, because the Green Bay Packers are very dangerous. Word salad on today's show. Even I'm getting caught up a little bit. Predicted who will get the home field advantage running through their stadium in the NFC. Go Birds all the way. What a magical sight it would be. And think about this. 2004, Eagles-Falcons at Lincoln Financial Field. All right? 2017, Eagles-Vikings at Lincoln Financial Field. 2022, Eagles-49ers at Lincoln Financial Field. Eagles won all 3. We need that home field advantage coming through Philly.